Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. We will start just in a few more minutes, so sit tight. Hi, everyone. Okay, we're going to get started. Sorry. Hi, my name's Jess, and I do English communications and social media for Standing Together. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we also have a live stream up on YouTube. So if anyone wants to share this with anyone else who might be interested, we have the live stream up there on our YouTube page. We are over 6 months into this absolutely brutal reality. We are still in trauma from the massacre of October 7th, and we're witnessing over 30,000 people being killed in Gaza. The majority of the population in Gaza are displaced and are suffering from food insecurity and starvation. The Israeli hostages are still being held captive in Gaza, and hundreds and thousands of Israelis have been displaced from the north and the south. We're seeing settler terror and Israeli military raids in the West Bank reaching new heights, with 14 Palestinians killed in the last 2 days. And the occupation is becoming more entrenched by the day. During this horrific war, we've been working around the clock to organize communities across the country and to internally fight for a ceasefire within Israeli society, to fight for a ceasefire agreement and a hostage release deal, which is really the only way to end the killing of innocent people in Gaza and to bring the hostages back alive. While obviously this is our immediate fight, we're also continuing to build a mass movement within Israeli society, calling for an end to the occupation, for peace, equality, and social justice in Israel-Palestine. Today, we'll talk about what it means to build a people's movement and a people's movement for peace that is working towards sustainable and just peace in Israel-Palestine, and how that's connected to all of you and to our international communities abroad. Tomorrow night is the beginning of Pesach, which is commonly referred to as Chag Chirut, which translates to the holiday of freedom or liberty. For many of us, Pesach this year feels particularly heavy to talk about liberation and freedom at a time where the hostages are still being held captive and there are unfathomable levels of killing and destruction taking place in Gaza and the West Bank. If anything, this year is a reminder of just how crucial the idea of collective liberation is, and how intertwined the destinies of Palestinians and Jews truly are. We hope that this webinar can be a practical manifestation of the ideas of collective liberation and solidarity, and a reminder that it's not only possible, but it's essential. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I'd like to first welcome Sally Abed. Sally is a member of the elected National Leadership of Standing Together and a newly elected Haifa City Council member.
Thank you, Jess, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you for joining us, for your interest, for your willingness to listen, to learn, to support, and to help us in our mission towards building a people's peace movement in Israel, co-led by both Palestinian and Jewish citizens of Israel. We are demanding a movement, and we are building the political will towards freedom, equality, and justice for all. It's a very, very difficult time for all of us. And I feel, while it might feel like we are desensitized to what happened for us on the ground, it feels like we are always finding a new bottom, a new low, a new way that we are challenged to understand and see and hold a grip on our vision for freedom, equality, and justice for both peoples on our land. It is hard not to start with acknowledging the specific times that we are in right now, and in particular, really, the historic junction that we are in as people here on the ground, on the land, but also as people abroad, everyone that is listening to us right now, and everyone that is in tune and that is not only feeling affiliated, but is also heavily impacted by what is happening. This war has really brought incomprehensible levels of destruction and mass death. We are really talking about 35,000 deaths in Gaza, nearly 15,000 are children, tens of thousands of wounded, nearly 20,000 orphans. We're talking almost about an entire population of 2.2 million people that are displaced, with severe malnutrition and lack of food and starvation. We're talking about their houses, their lives, their universities, their shops, their streets, everything that they ever knew has been destroyed. But we also need to understand, that this destruction has been conducted in the name of security, in the name of safety, in the name of saving lives of the Israeli hostages, and also destroying the extremist military capacity of Hamas. We also know that not only that these human catastrophes have not been able and successful in securing the release of all the hostages. In fact, we know that they were deathly to them, unfortunately. But we also know that Hamas, as an ideology, but also as a military, has never been stronger. Because we know that every extreme regime needs extremism to justify its own. We must acknowledge and realize that the real goal of our government, here, the Israeli government, and the political leaders, is led by self-interest, is led by extreme fascist ideologies and messianic fantasies. We have never been led by a leadership that really has the interest in securing our safety and securing our prosperity. We know that with the hundreds of thousands of people misplaced within Israel right now, not being able to return home. We know that because of the hostages are still in Gaza. We know that because of the crackdown and the complete ignoring and overlooking of the needs of people in Israel. We also know that because of the complete crackdown of the Palestinian citizens of Israel and the attack on the civil society, as well as civil rights of academia, of students, of activists here in Israel. We also know that this has not started on October 7th. Just 2 days ago, the Israeli army launched an attack on Nur Shams, a refugee camp near Tulkarem in the West Bank, killing 14 people while abducting 5 of the bodies and arresting tens of Palestinians there, while destroying the streets and many, many of the houses. We know that the army right now is giving a hand and protecting many, many of the settlers that are going and attacking Palestinian villages in the West Bank and physically preventing humanitarian aid into Israel. Since October 7th, in a wide-ranging campaign of arrests, more than 8,000 male and female detainees have been arrested in the West Bank and Gaza. 80% of them are held under arbitrary administrative detention without charge or trial. We also know reportedly of 16 Palestinian prisoners who have been killed due to torture or ill treatment in Israeli prisons. We also need to acknowledge that the Israeli government, along with other extremists across the region, are taking us into an extremely dangerous, mutually destruction regional war, especially talking about the Islamic Republic of Iran. And again, I want to go back to the necessity of these extremist regimes, that we have to really isolate all of them in order to understand that they actually feed on each other and they need in each other. Now, I'm not saying this to discourage you. I'm not saying this to shock you. I think everyone, everything that I said right now, you probably have known. But I think you don't know, or people we don't talk about enough, is how can we actually combat this extremism? How can we actually combat what is happening and build a new political story, a new political protagonist, a new camp, a new paradigm where we understand where our alliances go in, here in Israel, Palestine, but also globally. We also know that in order to fight this extreme, mutually destructive, no-bottom hell that we are led to, we also need to create a new idea. And that's what Standing Together is doing here in Israel. That's what we aspire to do. That's why we intend to do, and that's our mission. We understand that in order for the Israeli public, both Palestinian and Jewish, to build the political will together, to lead the political will, to end the occupation, and to go towards peace that is just, that is equal, that secures freedom for the Palestinian people and secures safety for the Jewish people, we also need to provide a new alternative for the Israeli public. And that means building a new alternative. For many decades, the Israeli public has not been presented with an alternative. All of the shades, if you really look at the spectrum, the Israeli political spectrum today, we really see that they only are provided with a very similar idea with different shades. And that idea really is based on the assumption of the subjugation of the Palestinian people in some form or another. And what we really need to start understand now and really need to provide and build for the Israeli public is that we are at a historic junction where we need to start building the collective liberation of both Jews and Palestinians on this land. And that starts not only with co-leadership, not only with solidarity, it also starts with building and understanding, for me as a Palestinian, that I am not only demanding my narrative, demanding my history, demanding justice for me and my people collectively, but I am also assuming responsibility over the others, over the people that live within my society. And in many ways, that is what's special about Standing Together. And that's why what's special and what is critical about the Israeli society, which is often overlooked, that we have both Jewish and Palestinian citizens of the same entity that can actually build together and co-lead together a new political current and a new political leadership. And I really want to connect this maybe to your lives abroad, perhaps. And I think the one main thing that I want to maybe not challenge but add is I think we are really seeing an unprecedented level of not only awareness, but also engagement and also mobilization around the issue of Palestinian freedom. And for me, as a Palestinian in Israel, who is often deprived from engaging in such a courageous speech of the imperative of the freedom of Palestinians, I also want to note that we need to challenge the notion that Palestinian freedom has to come on the cost of Jewish safety. We also see how anti-Semitism is being weaponized to discredit Palestinian freedom, as if it's not necessary, that Palestinian freedom is not necessary for Jewish safety. And I think we really need to challenge ourselves and start understanding how we can shift our paradigm and create new kind of alliances, especially now here in Israel, but also abroad. Thank you so much, and thank you for tuning in, and I hope we'll be able to continue this conversation going forward and that we will only go stronger from here.
So my name is Alon Green. I'm the National Co-Director of Standing Together. I'm a Jewish citizen of Israel. I live in Tel Aviv. And I want to add on what Sally said, that these past 6 months, on more of a personal note, they've been the most challenging, difficult, sad months of our lives. It seems as if we are free falling. We continue to fall and fall and fall. And whenever we think we hit the rock bottom, we discover it ain't it, not yet. We keep on falling. There's nothing to hold on to, no grip at all. And then we understand that we are in the hands of lunatics, people that are supposed to be our leadership, supposed to take care of our lives, supposed to care about us, to care, at least as they present themselves, to at least care about the Jewish citizens of Israel, as they say they fight for, but they just don't care about us. Sitting a week and a day ago at our homes on a Saturday night, when we read all of a sudden in the news that the instructions are changed. We need to be close to a shelter, that Iran is about to start an attack on us just because our government decided to assassinate an Iranian general, and then understand that the Iranian attack has started. We read in the news, we see it on TV, that hundreds of flying objects are making their way towards us with warheads and explosives, and we just need to sit at home as if it's normal and wait for them to hit us. And we must say that it is not normal. This is not a normal life. This is not something we can accept and say that it should be normalized. We understand that this is the creation of a government that is obvious that do not care about the lives of Palestinians, obviously not about the lives of Iranians, but they don't care about our lives as well. So 6 months into this terrible reality where around 35,000 Palestinians lost their lives, almost 15,000 children are dead now because of this war, because of our bombings, we must understand, as the Israeli society, as Jewish and Palestinian citizens of Israel, as people living on this land, that this is the fight of our lives, That this is the fight that if we will not fight and try at least to build enough power to win, everything will be lost. People will either lose all hope, all ability to stay and remain and to live on this land. People will die because of violence. It will create more violence. It will create more violence. And we will be trapped forever in a cycle that is never ending of just, sorrow and grief and more depth of hatred. So we understand that we hit this historic junction. And then we ask ourselves, the people in standing together, our movement, our Palestinian Jewish movement, what is our role in this moment, in such reality? And we understand that as much as it was feeling lonely to say what we said during the first month of the war, as much as it is unrewarding to resist this war, to call for a ceasefire, to call for stopping the killing and destruction and starvation in Gaza, as much as it was even, almost, we suffered from violence when we called on 9th of October, 2 days after the attack, we issued a petition saying only a deal, only a ceasefire deal will bring back the hostages, and this is what we demand from our government. We couldn't know back then. We couldn't know back then how right we will be. We couldn't know that 6 months after this moment, more than 130 hostages will still be held in Gaza, and that some of them will lose their lives because of our bombings, others will lose their lives because of Hamas, and a lot will lose their lives because of the time that we lost in the process of not understanding that this is the only way to release them, a ceasefire agreement. So we ask ourselves, what is our role? And we understand that our role is to create competition in the Israeli society, to present a competitive idea, an alternative idea to the idea of the right wing that says basically that if we want to have safety, if we want to live a life here, it's either us or them. We need to have safety, so we need to hold them under occupation. We need to hold them under oppression. We need to build walls up to the air and barriers down to the ground. We need to put checkpoints and send our soldiers to their villages and towns and to occupy Gaza. This is what the right wing is trying to sell us before October 7th. And they did not change their conception after October 7th. They just said, we didn't do it strong enough. We didn't do it hard enough. So now we need to do it more. What we're trying to understand, as Sally said before, that we need to bring a new idea, a new option to the table and to put it on the menu. And this option says that only when we will reach a reality where all people that live on this land are free, equal, and independent, then we will have safety for both people. Then we will have a livable life, a quiet life for all the people that live here, Jews and Palestinians. And it is upon us, a movement of people to try and convince the Israeli society. We did a long path so far. We're not in the same place we've been 6 months ago, 3 months ago, 2 months ago. More and more people are joining now the movement. More and more people are going out of their houses to protest against the government, to demand a ceasefire agreement, to bring back the hostages. We're trying to create an expansion of the overtone window to also say that it's not only for the hostages, it's for the Palestinians and Jews together. And this is what we're fighting for. And we understand something very, very simple. People cannot choose something they have not been presented with. And this option, an option of peace, of equality, of independence and safety to all people, this is our role in the next few years in standing together. And we try to think about it as if we need to fight over the attention and the ability of people to listen to us, to hear us, to see us. Because right now, there is only one dominant idea. There is only one dominant way that is suggested and presented to the Israeli public. And if we will not take upon ourselves this responsibility to present our alternative way to every citizen, Palestinian or Jewish, in Israel, if we will not be able to really compete over the attention of the public, we will lose. So this is our first ask from you. Help us compete. Help us compete with these hegemonic powers that are in rule in Israel, that they have all the support from Republicans in the US, from Jewish donors in Europe and in the US. They are in government and they are telling a story. They have 3 strong words right now, and they present it as their plan. They say, occupy, expel, resettle. לכבוש, לגרש, ליישב. They have it on billboards. They have it on Facebook and Instagram campaigns. They present it as if this is the alternative. This is what will make me, my family, our society safe. But this is exactly more of their destructive and dangerous way. So we need to be able to put our 3 words, our ideas on the billboard. And we have 3 words. We say, leave Gaza, the government should leave, rebuild Gaza, rebuild the north, rebuild the Gaza envelope, and release the hostages, release the Palestinians from the occupation, release the government, release us from this terrible destruction. So we need this ability to compete and to put our message onto people's minds and attention. And this is our ask from you. Help us, please help us and support our work so we will be able to compete. There are links and barcodes, a link to become a friend of Standing Together. It is a monthly payment to the movement that will help us to go very long with our ability to campaign, our ability to mobilize people, to pay for buses, to print posters, to bring people together, to organize our communities. And there are links for one-time donation. If you can support us, this is the moment. This is what we need right now. So we will be able to go forward and fight the fight for peace, equality, and social justice in Israel. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alani. Over the past year, we've seen a surge of support for Standing Together abroad, which has led to Standing Together chapters opening up in various cities around the world, and over 2,300 people becoming friends of Standing Together. While we found ourselves in such a challenging moment in our society, it's super encouraging to know that our message is reaching far and wide and resonating with people. And we're really grateful for everyone involved in our international chapters. Really excitingly, today, for the first time, we'll be hearing from leaders in our groups in the UK and Los Angeles. And so first up, I would like to introduce Anna Rosa from the UK chapter. Anna is one of the 12 elected members of the National Steering Group of the UK Friends of Standing Together. She's a lawyer and is a board member of the New Israel Fund in the UK, and she co-founded Na'amod, which is the British Jews Against Occupation. Thanks, Anna.
Thanks, Jess, and thank you so much for asking me to be part of this event. I'm going to start by saying a couple of words about why I was so keen to become part of the Standing Together Global Network, and then I'll say a little bit about what we're up to in the UK. So, as someone with friends and family in Israel who also feels strongly about the injustice of the occupation and is horrified by what this war has inflicted on the people of Gaza, Standing Together is one of the few organisations whose messaging has consistently resonated with me since October 7th, and I've been so grateful for that and really wanted to support your work and share your approach with more people in the UK. The other thing I've always really admired about Standing Together is the way you combine pragmatism and principle, so working to build broad coalitions, but without shying away from the difficult issues, which can be quite a hard balance to strike, but it's so important and you do it so well. So in developing the UK network of Friends of Standing Together, what we want to do is increase awareness and support here for the amazing work that Standing Together are doing in Israel, and also to bring your voice and particularly your really deep empathy for both Jews and Palestinians to the UK discourse. So we've defined our goal as being to increase support in the UK for Standing Together, including by raising awareness of your vision, values and work, and encouraging people to support you, including by becoming part of the Friends of Standing Together programme. So the way we're organised here in the UK is that we've got a national group and then also regional branches. And last month, we elected our first national steering group of 12 people, which includes members with Israeli, Palestinian, Jewish, Arab, Muslim, and other backgrounds. The national steering group is going to be creating a strategy for our UK network, supporting the regional groups, and also doing work at a national level, including liaising with the national political groups and some fundraising work. We formally launched the UK network in December last year. We held an event in Parliament, and Uri Weltman and Rula Daoud came over and joined us in person, which we were so grateful for. The event was chaired by a Member of Parliament, Nadia Whitome, and also addressed by another Member of Parliament, Alex Sobel, and it was a really great event, a completely full room, a lot of energy and enthusiasm there. On a weekly basis, our local groups in Nottingham, Bristol and Barnet are doing really amazing work. They're holding vigils every week in public spaces under the banner of UK Friends of Standing Together, calling for a ceasefire, for the return of the hostages, an end to the occupation, and for peace and equal rights. And those are really working to increase awareness of standing together in those areas. And they've had some really positive conversations and grown our local branches through those vigils. We've also had regional events with leaders from Standing Together in Israel joining remotely. So a couple of days ago, our Nottingham branch held an in-person event hosted by their local MP, and Rula and Alon Lee joined that remotely, and that went really well with 60 people in the room. In London, our members have been going along as a block to different protests related to the Gaza war, and chatting to people and bringing another angle to the discussions and explaining that there is a joint struggle on the ground where Israelis and Palestinians are working together for justice and peace. And if people are interested, we're telling them more and encouraging them to get involved and to support Standing Together. And again, we've had some really interesting and productive conversations in those spaces. Finally, we've also got a lot of members involved in trade unions, and so they've been working in those networks to promote support for Standing Together. And a number of local trade union groups have actually passed motions committing to supporting Standing Together, which is great. And we're also in discussions with unions at national levels as well. So we hold national meetings online every month for people from all the branches across the UK, and for people whose area doesn't have a branch yet. Those usually include a report from Israel. And again, we're really grateful to Standing Together in Israel for always finding someone to come and talk to us, which makes such a difference, and we appreciate it so much. And then updates from the steering group and from the branches, and sort of learning from what each other are up to and discussing issues that come up. And everyone is welcome to join those, all supporters of Standing Together in the UK. Our next one's on the 13th of May, Monday evening, and the sign up for that will go out in the follow-up email after this webinar. So you can also obviously follow our social media, join our mailing list and our WhatsApp groups. And it would be great if there's UK people watching here for you to get involved with us. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Anna. Next up, we'll hear from two leaders from our group in Los Angeles, Zara and Lior. First, we'll hear from Lior, and afterwards we'll hear from Zara. Lior is an Israeli documentary filmmaker and photographer. Lior has made many films documenting Palestinian struggle for equality and liberty, and is currently based in LA.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. I want to thank Standing Together for giving us a home and a platform and a community. As Jess said, I was involved in making many films, shorts, features. I worked for American networks in the West Bank and with the Bedouin community in the South in Israel for many years. And I was always in touch and in contact and active. On October 7th, being here in LA, I felt very alone and didn't really find my place in where I can both grieve and speak for the people I care for, both Israelis and Palestinians in the region. There was a group in New York that I was involved in when I was living in New York at the time of Israelis that are anti-occupation activists. And they decided to hold a vigil on the streets where they can both grieve for their families and speak about their Israeli families, but also voice and read letters from people, friends in Gaza and the West Bank. And I wanted to find a community of people here I started meeting activists and like-minded people here. But what really brought it together was discovering Standing Together social media messaging that really aligned with how we felt. And I discovered that people started local WhatsApp groups in different cities. Talia, a member of a group, started our local group. So we all came together there. You're welcome to invite to join us there. We started talking about holding weekly Zoom meetings between us. We had our first Zoom a few months ago. And since then we meet every week. It's a safe and great space for everybody to speak about how they feel and what they want to do. Since then, we had our own Vigil for Peace on the street here. We also demonstrate every Sunday. We started roaming in different places. We have a social media dedicated social media posting for our group in LA that you can learn about and know where the demonstrations take place. That happens every Sunday. We also started a non-member of our group, a Palestinian Israeli, wanted to start a third camp, a camp that is not polarized with Israeli flags on one side, Palestinian flags on the other side, but a camp for Standing Together at UCLA campuses, and we hope to grow it to other places. So we're doing that every Wednesdays in UCLA, and you can join that. And right now, as we speak, our group is gathering together and going to USC, to the Festival of Books, to stand outside and engage people to join the cause. And we find it both fulfilling for ourselves and a safe place and a home for everybody here, but also a clear and sound voice to demand a better and safe and equal future for all of us together. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lior. Now we'll be hearing from Zara. Born and raised in Canada to Palestinian parents, Zara has spent the last decade of her professional career working in the biotech industry. She currently lives in Los Angeles and is a board member of Tomorrow's Women, which is an organization that trains young Palestinian and Israeli women to be compassionate leaders.
Thanks, Jess, and thank you everyone who's gone before me. And thank you, Lior. My name is Zahra. Zara is what a lot of people in North America call me, but my parents named me Zahra. I'm Palestinian. I was born and raised in Canada and lived there all my life until I moved to LA recently. My mom's side, so my mom was born and raised in East Jerusalem, spent some time in Ramallah, and comes from a very proud Jerusalemite family. And she grew up there mostly under occupation before moving to Canada. My dad's side, a little bit different. They're from Jaffa. And they were prominent orange farmers, had many, many acres of orange groves. That was their livelihood and their home. But my father was born in May 1948, born a refugee, born outside of Palestine, Israel, whatever you choose to call it at this point in time. And he's never known the life that his parents had and his grandparents had in Jaffa, in their ancestral home. And, you know, one thing that's always top of mind for me is my dad. You know, my dad's birthday is coming up. He's going to be turning 75, and he is the same age as the state of Israel. So that's very impactful for me. I tell my family story to all of you because it informs who I am. Like many Palestinians in the diaspora, I carry the weight of my people's tragedy with me everywhere I go. Throughout my life, I've watched almost, very feeling helpless from afar, watching war after war, injustice after injustice, and seeing that the living conditions and the safety of Palestinians has not improved. The occupation continues. It's just, it doesn't seem any better than we were hoping 20 years ago. And I've visited family many times in Palestine. I've experienced firsthand the inhumanity of checkpoints. Every time I visit and fly into Ben Gurion Airport, I am interrogated for hours, despite my Canadian passport, Canadian birthplace, and squeaky clean record, just because I'm Palestinian. So I share this because the Palestinian desire for freedom and justice lives within me. This is my background. This is my story. This is who I am. But I have to say that after October 7th, I personally struggled to reconcile the idealism of the Palestinian cause with the tangible atrocities that showed blatant disregard for human life. And what resonated with me was that it is the same disregard that has been dehumanizing Palestinians for decades. And I just kept thinking, how are we ever going to break out of this cycle of violent revenge? And it really plagued me for a long time. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to, who to talk to about this. And then luckily, serendipitously, I came across a podcast that was interviewing Sally. And it was such a turning point for me because it was the first time I heard a Palestinian living on the land speak publicly the same feelings that I had in my heart, that all people deserve freedom, equality, safety, and dignity, and that Palestinians and Israelis can and should build something better together. And since then, and before then, really, I've always thought about what my privilege means as a Palestinian living in the diaspora. I acknowledge that where I live in Los Angeles, and I grew up in Canada, I'm safe. I am equal under the law. I have freedom of movement, and I have freedom of speech. And I just kept wondering, what if I used my privilege to build mutual interest with the Jews and Israelis that are in my city, instead of furthering the divide? What kind of future could we build that would be different from the present that we're seeing today? I'm not an activist by any means, but I joined the Standing Together community because I was looking for people who shared the same values as me and the same hopes for a homeland where everybody is safe and prosperous. I think what's really amazing to see is that these community groups have been forming organically. For those of you who are part of a group already or who are considering joining one, it's extremely inspiring to me that these groups are being built by the people on the ground here all over the world in solidarity, because there's a real desire for a different way. I think we are all tired of it and we want better. And the LA chapter has been very active, as you just heard from Lior, and that's a big thanks to him. He has been a huge part of organizing our group together, as well as many others in our group who have become dear friends of mine. And for me, I think what was so life-changing was getting off of social media and meeting like-minded Palestinians and Jews in person. And the people that I've met have had very different backgrounds. I'm Palestinian. There are many Israelis in our group. There are other Palestinians in our group as well. And we all come from different backgrounds, but we're driven by the same thing, which is that we're not just asking for something better, but we are working hard to build something better for all of us. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much for those absolutely beautiful words. Just before we move on, I just want to touch on something that you just said, which is, I'm by no means an activist, but, and then continue to describe exactly what organizing and activism is. I think that what we are doing at Standing Together on the ground and what we want, like in local communities overseas, is exactly that. It doesn't have to be, this idea of what being an activist means X, Y, and Z. That's not always the case. Like what we're trying to do is we're organizing our communities in different ways. Yes, in protests and demonstrations, and yes, in more political aspects, but also in community building and solidarity with one another. And that takes so many different forms. And so I think what we've heard today from these really, really inspiring leaders from our international chapters is, these different ways of being able to be an activist and be an organizer and organize communities around the world. I'm honestly very moved by us having like our first webinar with people from around the world talking in it. And I want to just really reiterate that anyone who wants to join one of these local chapters is welcome to. We've been sending in the chat links for those who want to join WhatsApp groups, and through those WhatsApp groups you can then join local chapters. So please join if you want to. And I also wanted just to touch on something as well, that obviously this webinar is more focused about Friends of Standing Together and organizing taking place internationally. But of course, for the past, 8 years, and also specifically the past, 6 months since October 7th, we've had also a local surge of activism and organizing within our communities here on the ground. So of course, we are mostly focused on the ground, and this webinar is an opportunity to share the work that we're doing around the world with these amazing, amazing leaders who have taken it on themselves to spread our message and spread our movement across the world. And so we'd love to invite you to join that. So to explain a bit more about local chapters and specifically Friends of Standing Together and how you can support us, I'd like to welcome Nadav Shofet, who's a member of Standing Together's national elected leadership and a coordinator for our Friends of Standing Together program.
Thank you, Jess. And thank you all. Also the previous speakers who I have to say, for me as well, moved me so much. And I also spoke with all of these speakers in the last few days once more, and it is just so inspiring and really gives us hope. I think not only to see the support we are getting as a movement here on the ground from across the world, but also to see how communities are building across the world around this message that we are sharing and we are spreading. And I have to say, I'm not surprised. Because for me as well, I grew up, again, not as an activist. And I previously worked in the high-tech industry. And as time progressed and the situation in this country became just more and more dire in terms of Israeli-Palestinian relations and in terms of the situation on the ground inside of Israeli society, I found myself being drawn to not just activism, but specifically standing together. And I as well found community in standing together. And today it is, it is a huge part of my life. I am on the national elected leadership of Standing Together, and I also work for Standing Together. And I think this sense of community around these goals, which is both a community, but not just a community, but a political community, one that fights, one that recognizes the absolutely horrible situation that we are in and fights every single day to change it. It's something where I found a home, and I hear that, and I think we can all see that people around the world have found a home. And I want to kind of directly and invite everybody on this webinar to be part of our global community. And that means joining these WhatsApp groups that we are sending in the chat right now. We have WhatsApp groups for all over the world. And if a group does not exist, you can suggest adding a new one. As our capacity grows, we will be able to accompany the organizing of more and more groups. But I also want to firmly invite you to join our Friends of Standing Together membership program, our international membership program. And why is this so important? Because our theory of change is that change happens when people act collectively towards a shared goal, right? So we aren't basing our action and our goals and our strategy on a few celebrities, that say the right things, or a really great social media strategy, even though Jess is doing a wonderful job creating an amazing social media presence abroad. But we base it on the collective action of thousands and hundreds of thousands and millions of people. This is our theory of change. Nothing will change. The type of change that we are looking for, the type of radical change, to move from endless war and occupation towards peace, to move from inequality and racism towards equality, to move from unjust society to social and climate justice. These things cannot happen if we don't form a very, very large mass movement around these goals. And they also can't happen if we aren't supported by our movement members. And today we have over 5,000 members in Israel contributing monthly sums to the movement, and they are members of Standing Together. And recently we've opened this new Friends of Standing Together program, and we already have over 2,500 members, monthly members. And I can't tell you how important this is. Also, for creating community abroad, and also for spreading the voice, and also for directly supporting our continued ability to do so. Because Friends of Standing Together, they're in it with us. They're with us for the long haul, right? This is not just one-time thing. This is continued membership. And you can choose to become a member with any sum of your choice, right? If you have the ability to contribute more monthly, then please do so. But if you don't, that's great. We want everybody, and you can do it for the price of a cup of coffee, right? And this sounds small, but it is so incredibly powerful, because we did the numbers, and for every 150 people who join as a friend of Standing Together, we are able to open up a new local chapter abroad. That means funding for a community organizer. That means buying the megaphones and printing the banners and being able to organize together based on this community, based on our shared interest. So it is incredibly, incredibly impactful. Friends of Standing Together have already jumped jumped our movement up another level in our ability to be part of the global conversation, and also in our ability to work tirelessly on the ground in Israel, Palestine, to create real systemic change. And this is the kind of change that we are looking for, and we can only do it based on people like yourselves in this webinar. So if you haven't yet joined the WhatsApp groups, please do that. And if you haven't yet become a member of Friends of Standing Together, please do that, because this is just so important. And I want to say another thing. Friends of Standing Together, part of our making these global community that we are building is not just these local WhatsApp groups, but it's also direct connection with Standing Together in Israel, Palestine. And Friends of Standing Together get invited to exclusive conversations with the leadership of Standing Together. Unfortunately, for this kind of webinar, we are not able to have a back and forth. We're not able to answer the amazing questions that we see in the chat because there's just too many people, and is not the forum that we want to create. But Friends of Standing Together get invited to exclusive conversations that are completely open. We had one just last Thursday, and we have another one on May 5th with Standing Together leadership members. And this allows us to not just answer your questions, but also hear your thoughts, and also just create a community that is connected with each other and connected with leadership of Standing Together. And the final thing I want to say is this is such a pivotal moment in what is happening in the region and in the world. And we're on the precipice. Will we fall into the abyss? Will we continue down this road of death and destruction and societal collapse? or will we be able to come out of it with a better future, with the future of peace, of justice, of independence for everybody who lives here, for equality? And I have to tell you, this won't happen magically. This won't happen deterministically on its own. This will only happen if we all take collective action. And one of the easiest and most effective ways, I cannot stress this enough, one of the most easiest and effective ways to do this is to become a friend of Standing Together. Because, you know, I live in Israel, and I see the other organizations around us and other movements, and many of them are wonderful, and we partner with many of them, but there is nothing like standing together. Nothing like standing together. So please join our global community, join Friends of Standing Together, join our WhatsApp groups, be part of this change. Because if we don't do it, if enough of us don't do it, then it just won't be done, and we'll fall into the abyss. So thank you very much. And thank you for everybody who joined with us today to even just to hear us. And thank you to all our wonderful speakers. And now to sum up, I want to hand it over to Rula Daoud, a national co-director of Standing Together.
So, hi everybody, and thank you again for being with us and taking part and listening to us. And I do want to start by saying thank you for the speakers, to Zahra, to Lior, to Anna. You do give us hope when we see people participating and taking part in what we are trying to do in Israel, Palestine. It also gives us a hope. And I do want to sum up by saying that many people say we are dreamers as a grassroots movement, that we have big dreams. And yes, we do. And we are dreamers because we understand that there is another way. We understand that we have facts that we live with them, and we understand that we have the will to build in people. We know that our country has launched countless wars and military operations only to end up with no real solutions. We have seen only more blood happening. We know that the Israelis' policy of attempting to destroy Hamas's military capability, if every few years, has only led to Hamas getting stronger. We understand that no military operation has ever brought a lasting safety and security for the people living in Israel, while only being more catastrophic for Palestinians. We also know that the occupation of the West Bank and the blockage on Gaza must end, not only because it is brutal and oppressive for Palestinians, but also because it does not guarantee any long-term safety for Israelis or anybody who lives in Israel, Palestine. We also know that a negotiated peace agreement is the only way to ensure freedom, equality, and safety for both people. And yes, there are two people living in Israel, Palestine, and none of us is going anywhere. And as a grassroots movement, a progressive grassroots movement, we are focused on building that political will in our society, in the Israeli society, so we can reach a political solution by building a mass movement of Jews and Palestinians inside of Israel. And that is the future we really believe in. And that is the shared future that we think it's possible. And thanks to you and your involvement, our work can be much more effective, can reach more ears and more people. So thank you for being with us. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for supporting us. And thank you for wanting to be part of what we are trying to do in Israel, Palestine. And for those of you who are celebrating, we wish you a happy Passover. And may the next Passover be a true holiday of freedom and collective liberation for all of us. And we will leave you with a short video to see. And again, thank you so much for being with us.
These are harrowing times of destruction and war. We are witnessing a massive humanitarian crisis in Gaza, destruction of civil life, Israeli hostages still in captivity, families being torn apart, millions displaced from their homes, and an entire region in turmoil and despair.
And what is our political leadership offering us? More of the same, more bloodshed, and a war with no end in sight. Peace appears to be a distant and fleeting dream for so many in Israel-Palestine. But amidst the chaos,
At Standing Together, we are working tirelessly to change this helpless and hopeless reality, proving that within this despair there is hope, resilience, and a commitment to continue fighting together towards a better future.
we've opened new local chapters to strengthen the solidarity between Jews and Palestinians in Israel.
We've opened a hotline to provide support to those affected by the war, racism, and incitement.
We've organized mass rallies, mobilizing thousands to the streets to demand a ceasefire agreement to stop the killing and destruction in Gaza and to bring the hostages back home safely.
We have opened new student chapters fighting on campuses for peace and against inequality. We have reached millions of people online through social media, presenting the public with an alternative path forward.
In these terrible, terrible times, the demand for a different way is growing. Standing Together already has over 5,000 members in Israel and over 2,000 friends of Standing Together supporting us from abroad. We have 12 local chapters in cities and towns and 11 student chapters on university and college campuses.
We stand together with one voice.
A voice that cries out for an end to the occupation.
A voice that demands equality, freedom, and independence for all who live here. And a voice that refuses to be silenced until the promise of peace becomes not a distant dream, but a reality we can all share.
Let us be the generation that chooses to build bridges over the rubble of destruction.
Let this be the time we look back at and say, it was then when the world came together and we started forging a path toward lasting peace.
Only through our joint efforts can we bring about these significant societal shifts that are so long overdue.
Together, we will strive to heal the wounds of the past and work relentlessly toward a future of peace, dignity, and justice.
Join us in the fight towards a better tomorrow.
Let peace prevail and let it start with us.